Zora Arkus-Duntov spent the better part of 2 decades trying to convince General Motors that the Corvette deserved to be taken seriously. Not as a showroom draw, not as a styling exercise, as a genuine performance machine capable of standing beside the finest sports cars Europe had ever produced. He succeeded. And when Chevrolet finally chose to name a Corvette after him, to put his name on the most extreme, most ambitious version of America's sports car, they were making a statement that carried the weight of 70 years of history behind it. The 2027 Corvette Zora is that statement made physical. And here at Premium Automotive Reviews, where we measure cars not by what a press release claims, but by what the engineering actually delivers in your hands and your nervous system, this one is unlike anything we have ever stood next to. Before we walk through every dimension of this car, there is a hybrid system decision buried in this powertrain that separates the Zora from every other supercar at its price point. Not because hybrid assistance is unusual at this level, but because of how specifically and controversially Chevrolet chose to deploy it. That detail changes everything about how this car behaves at the limit. We will reach it. But first, stand here and absorb what this car communicates before a single system is activated. The color is called torch red, and in full sunlight it reads as something closer to liquid fire than automotive paint. The body surface catches light in panels and planes rather than smooth curves. Every facet of the exterior communicating aerodynamic function through visual language that is simultaneously technical and visceral. This is not a car designed to be admired from a distance. It is designed to make you feel slightly uncomfortable standing close to it, as though the energy contained within it is already straining to escape. The front fascia is a study in controlled violence. Sharp angular headlamp housings flank a wide mesh grille opening, their LED light signatures cutting upward and outward in a pattern that echoes the crossed flag's emblem, centered above the grille opening. The hood is deeply sculpted, twin extraction channels pressing upward from the mid-engine bay beneath, venting heat with visible intent. Carbon fiber canards emerge from each lower corner of the front fascia, not symmetrical, positioned specifically to balance front downforce loads at speed, based on CFD work done in collaboration with Chevrolet's Motorsport division. The profile is low, dramatically so, with a roofline that flows from the A-pillar into a fastback arc before terminating in a full carbon-active rear wing that rises on electro-hydraulic actuators at speed. At rest, the wing sits flat against the body, and the car reads as a single unified form. At highway speed, it angles upward and the Zora's rear contact patch loads with a downforce figure that Chevrolet's team internally targets at over 700 pounds at 150 miles per hour. The side intakes ahead of the rear wheels are large, functional, and aggressive, feeding the mid-mounted engine with the directness of a car that prioritizes thermal management above aesthetic tidiness. Massive 20-inch front and 21-inch rear forged wheels in a multi-spoke machined finish fill the arches completely. Large, red-painted Brembo calipers gripping carbon ceramic rotors behind each spoke. The Corvette crossed flag's emblem appears at each wheel center. Every detail on this exterior exists for a reason, and every reason traces back to lap time. The Zora sill plate greets you as you open the door. Carbon fiber etched with Zora Corvette in white lettering, the crossed flags above it. Lower yourself into the seat and the cabin closes around you in a way that is simultaneously intimate and focused. The seat is deep, bolstered in full adrenaline red leather that matches the exterior precisely, carbon fiber shell backs rising behind the shoulders. The grip is immediate. The seat does not adjust to you so much as it accepts you, and the distinction matters at the limit when lateral loads arrive without warning. The steering wheel is flat-bottomed and trimmed in leather and carbon, its diameter compact, its rim dense and grippy. The crossed flag sits centered at the hub. In your hands, the wheel carries a weight and feedback potential that you sense before the car is even started. The dashboard is a full immersive environment. Red leather sweeps across the entire fascia, interrupted by carbon fiber structural elements and a large landscape format touchscreen that rises from the center console in a portrait orientation. The Zora OS startup sequence displays the car's identity on screen before transitioning to the driver interface. Performance data, drive mode selection, adaptive suspension calibration, and navigation arranged in a layout that prioritizes information without creating cognitive overload. The ambient lighting within the cabin glows at a low red level that matches the leather and intensifies slightly in sport and track modes. The scent at rest is carbon fiber and leather, clean, technical, present. The acoustic insulation in this cockpit is exceptional for a car with this level of mechanical urgency beneath it. The outside world reduces to near silence with the windows up, and the drive mode in touring. Now, the powertrain. The Zora carries a supercharged 5.5-liter flat-plane crank V8, the same fundamental architecture as the 06's LT6, significantly upgraded in this application. Internally projected at approximately 850 horsepower from the combustion engine alone. That figure is already extraordinary. But Chevrolet did not stop there. The controversial decision is this. Rather than placing hybrid electric motors at the front axle for all-wheel drive assistance in the conventional hypercar fashion, the approach Ferrari took with the SF90, the approach McLaren pursued with the Artura. Chevrolet's engineers positioned a single electric motor unit integrated directly into the rear transaxle, adding an estimated 150 kilowatts of torque fill, specifically in the 2,000 to 4,500 Mrn range, where the supercharged flat-plane V8 builds boost. The result is a combined system output projected at approximately 1,050 horsepower delivered exclusively to the rear wheels. No front motor, no all-wheel drive. Rear-wheel drive only, at over 1,000 horsepower, with the electric system deployed not as a traction aid but as an engine character enhancer. The debate inside the engineering team was reportedly significant. The decision was made deliberately, with full understanding that the car would demand more from the driver as a result. Close your eyes. The start sequence of the Zora begins with the electric system initializing silently, a brief high-pitched whir from the rear transaxle that resolves quickly. Then the LT6 fires. Even with a supercharger fitted, the flat-plane crank architecture gives this engine a sound character that is unlike any pushrod V8, sharper, more strident at the fundamental frequency, with a layered complexity to the exhaust note that builds through the rev range with an urgency that borders on exotic. At idle, the engine settles into a fast mechanical pulse, busy and present, not the slow, confident throb of a V8 in repose, but something more awake, more impatient. Blip the throttle gently and the response is instantaneous, the note snapping upward before the supercharger's whine layers in above it. Under full acceleration from low speed, the electric torque fills in first, smooth, massive, immediate, before the supercharged V8 reaches its own power band, and the sound transitions from forceful to genuinely alarming. The exhaust through the twin center outlets in the carbon diffuser produces a continuous scream between 6,000 and 8,000 reproducent that carries both the violence of American V8 and the exotic intensity of a flat-plane European engine in a single unified voice. Each upshift from the 8-speed dual clutch is a physical event, a sharp mechanical crack that drops the revs and reloads them within a fraction of a second. The cabin acoustic tuning allows this sound in at a deliberate level, controlled enough to remain livable, present enough to be impossible to ignore. Moving the car for the first time, the steering requires your full respect immediately. The rack is fast, genuinely faster than the C8Z06, and the response from the rear axle at the first application of meaningful throttle tells you that this car and 1,050 horsepower to the rear wheels is a relationship that requires trust built over time, not assumed from the start. The magnetic ride suspension in its default setting is composed and surprisingly communicative over road texture. You feel the surface beneath you through the seat and the wheel without the harshness of a purely track-configured car. In touring mode, the Zora is genuinely usable on imperfect roads, the adaptive dampers responding to surface variation with a speed and intelligence that keeps the ride livable without losing the chassis communication that makes this car worth driving. In track mode, the transformation is total. The body stiffens, the steering sharpens further, and the car begins to feel like something that requires track conditions to fully explore. The brakes are extraordinary. The carbon ceramic rotors respond with a bite and linearity under hard application that builds absolute confidence within the first few stops. Compared to the Ferrari SF90 Stradale, which carries a similar combined output figure and a similar hybrid philosophy, the Zora is rawer, louder, and more physically demanding. The Ferrari wraps its performance in refinement and all-wheel drive security. The Zora asks for more. Compared to the Porsche 911 GT3 RS, the Zora is heavier but considerably more powerful and significantly more dramatic in character. Where the GT3 RS rewards precision, the Zora rewards courage. It occupies a space that neither Lamborghini nor McLaren currently fills with the same combination of heritage, accessibility of ownership experience, and outright capability. The Zora feels most correct at the moment just after midnight on an empty mountain road, the air cool, the tarmac dry, the headlamps cutting sharp geometry into the darkness ahead, while the LT6 builds through its rev range at a volume that the surrounding hills absorb completely. This is where the rear-wheel drive-only decision makes complete emotional sense. The car talks to you constantly, through the seat, the wheel, the throttle, in a language that rewards listening and punishes distraction. The one honest limitation: in wet conditions with cold tires, the Zora's 1,050 horsepower to the rear axle requires a level of restraint that not every driver will find natural or comfortable. The electronic stability systems are sophisticated and calibrated thoughtfully, but they cannot fully substitute for all-wheel drive traction in genuinely compromised conditions. This is a real constraint, acknowledged openly by engineers who made the choice deliberately in the name of driving character. Estimated pricing for the Zora is projected in the range of $180,000 to $210,000 depending on specification. For that, you are not simply purchasing the fastest production Corvette ever made. You are purchasing America's answer to a question the exotic car world has been asking for decades: whether a domestically engineered, domestically produced supercar can compete with the finest machinery Europe and Japan have ever produced, not on marketing terms but on the road, at the limit, where the only currency that matters is what the car actually delivers. The Zora's answer is unambiguous. The Corvette Zora has no true direct competitor. It is too focused and too powerful to be compared against conventional sports cars, too emotionally raw to sit comfortably beside the electronically sophisticated European hypercars it outperforms on paper, and too American in its philosophy to be evaluated by European criteria. It is a segment of one, a genuine American hypercar that earns that description without qualification. The person this car was built for has driven serious machinery on serious roads and found every experience slightly incomplete. They are someone who understands that real performance is not something you consume passively. It is something you participate in, something that demands skill and rewards it with a physical and emotional feedback loop that nothing else replicates. They are not interested in a car that makes difficult things feel easy. They want a car that makes difficult things feel worth doing. Before we close, here is the question worth putting to this community. Chevrolet made the Zora rear-wheel drive only at over 1,000 horsepower, deliberately rejecting the all-wheel drive approach that Ferrari, McLaren, and Porsche have all adopted at this power level. Is that the right philosophical decision? A statement of driving purity that defines the Zora's character? Or does it unnecessarily limit the car's usability and real-world performance potential in a way that buyers at this price point shouldn't have to accept? Both arguments are worth making. Drop your position below, and if conversations like this one are why you're here, make sure you're subscribed. Because the cars we are covering this year are only getting more significant. The 2027 Corvette Zora is not the car that proves America can build a supercar. It is the car that makes you forget the question was ever in doubt.